Will he or won't he? South Carolina Senator Tim Scott has voters in Iowa asking that question. He spoke there on Wednesday. The Hawkeye state is, of course, the location of the first contest on the Republican nominating calendar. And here's what the senator told reporters when asked if he was ready to end the speculation and give it a run.
As I have a chance to speak around the state and get feedback, it will inform and educate me on how to accomplish the mission that I really believe is the most important part of my life.
Let's bring in CBS News chief election and campaign correspondent Robert Costa. So, Bob, what is Tim Scott's pitch to his party, or what would it be if he decides to run?
John, good to be with you. Senator Scott rose to power in the Senate as someone who came from the Tea Party movement, was connected to traditional conservatives. So he's certainly making a traditional Reaganite-type message when it comes to the economy and when it comes to foreign policy. But what makes him different, he is the lone black Republican in the Senate. He is also someone who has an evangelical faith that is intertwined with his political life. And so he operates politically in that same political space that former Vice President Mike Pence is in, Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin, two evangelical Christians along with Senator Scott in the Republican 2024 conversation. But he's 57 years old. Though he's that age, he's considered someone who would be a breath of fresh air by some donors like Larry Ellison and others post-Trump.
And a lot of Republicans for the last many months have been saying, you know, when they talk about the future of the party, they always land on Tim Scott as the kind of vision of the future of the party. So tell me this, Bob, what's your sense? He comes from South Carolina, important state for the primary contest, but so does Nikki Haley. How does that math all work out?
It's interesting that Ambassador Haley joined the Trump administration. Senator Scott worked with the Trump administration, but was never seen as someone who had embraced wholeheartedly Trump-style nationalism, populism, whether it's on domestic or foreign policy. So he has less of the Trump mark on him politically. Haley has that on her resume. Scott does not. So he's able to cast himself, his allies say, as someone who's friendly with the Trump voter, but independent of the Trump political operation and the Trump administration. We'll see if that can really play in a place like Iowa, where he's visiting, play in his own state of South Carolina. But he's always been a careful politician. I've covered him since he was in the House of Representatives. He's careful with reporters. He's careful with his remarks, taciturn, but he has a warm message, his friends say, in terms of talking about American sunrise. You hear that in his rhetoric now. Sunrise versus the pugilism and combativeness of the Trump years. He's offering that as a contrast, not directly with Trump, who's already in the race, but certainly a contrast nevertheless.
Now I want to ask you about the candidacy of Vivek Ramaswamy. Much of the primary jockeying, well, tell me if you think this is the case, is going to be about culture war issues. Vivek Ramaswamy has joined the race. He's the author of Woke Inc. He's gone after companies for investing in social or environmental issues. So he's an outsider, but he's on message. What's your sense of his candidacy, which would have to be considered a long shot given the field, but he is on message?
He is on message, and he's in that what I would call Tucker Carlson primary space in the Republican Party, a reference, of course, to the Fox News host. Tucker Carlson has this anti-woke rhetoric and perspective on Republican politics, also with a libertarian-type perspective on other issues. This new entrant into the race is someone who could connect with that Tucker Carlson viewer, whether they're in Iowa, South Carolina, or elsewhere. This anti-quote woke position by many top Republicans is something that has caught on. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is someone who has certainly articulated that sort of message. But it remains to be seen whether this is enough to carry, whether it's the governor of Florida or Vivek, to the nomination, in the sense that there are other issues that always come to the fore, whether it's Ukraine, the economy, beyond the culture, things on the foreign policy and domestic front that really matter and can sometimes crowd out the culture wars, even if many candidates want to seize on those issues.
And finally, Bob, back to the last election, the forewoman in the Georgia special grand jury, which is looking into efforts to overturn the last election, she said the list of indicted parties in the report from that grand jury is long. What's your sense of what the fallout has been of those interviews she's been giving?
we're still waiting to see what District Attorney Fani Willis of Fulton County, Georgia, is going to do. So the forewoman's getting ahead of the district attorney's decision. The special grand jury was convened to issue recommendations. They've done that in a report. The district attorney is considering what to do, but it is highly unusual for a forewoman like this to speak out before district attorneys made the decision whether she will move forward with another grand jury that could issue formal criminal indictments. Some Republican lawyers close to witnesses have told CBS News today that this whole episode of her giving high-profile interviews to the media could be used in terms of filing to dismiss any possible indictment down the line, to say they need to quash the indictments. This is somehow tainting a possible indictment in the future. So you see Republicans bracing to use this. But at the same time, as many legal experts have said, when a grand jury participant speaks out after the grand jury has finished its work, that's not illegal. It's just unusual.
Robert Costa in Plains, Georgia. Thanks, Bob.